Thank you everyone for joining today. This session is aimed at requirements gathering for the dispute management workstream, which is led by Promesse, who's on the call. So the aim of this workstream is to develop a dispute management solution that can be integrated both with the modular loop core and with connected DFSPs, and also more than one potential core if there are multiple modular loops connected together in whatever topology. So managing disputes end to end across that chain or topology. And it's intended to meet the needs of both hub operators and the participating DFSPs across the full range of deployment types. This is intended to be an interactive session. However, I think Promesse, you're going to speak first. You're the workstream lead, so I'll hand over to you to lead this, and I'll interject at strategic points. That's okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope I'm audible. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so the goal, as Paul mentioned, is to build dispute management module loop. And where it becomes even so interesting is that we have different use cases here. We have merchant payment. We can do even P2P. We can even do the payment initiation, and we can even do the cross-border. And all those use cases have different participants involved in them. Like, for example, on cross-border, we can have more than even one or two participants involved, which means when there's an issue in the transaction, tracking that issue might take different ways, which is different when only two are involved. So my approach now is that I'm going to show you what we have tried to implement in Rwanda. It will be a presentation to tell you exactly how the dispute works. I'll share even the detailed flows of what we have done. And then from there, as Paul has mentioned, this is going to be a very interactive session. I'm sure this is the first one, but of course we need to make it, of course, very productive. And then we also have maybe other sessions, few sessions to those specific use cases. Maybe to the people who work in cross-border, they might have different problems or concerns or requirements which are different to those who use the payment initiation and etc. So that's what we're going to do. I will start by, of course, presenting what we have now, and then we'll ask questions, and maybe it can even help you to start from there, giving requirements and other suggestions to how we can improve it here. So I will share my screen. I will share the screen here. Yeah, it seems like I will have to allow my on the yes. I had to allow some. You apologize if, for instance, I quit because I have to allow some settings to share the screen on Zoom. You apologize me for that, and then I will join.
Yeah. Classic security issue. Give them a few minutes.
Paul, do you believe?
Yes, you're back.
You're back from us? Is it working?
Yes, working. Let me know if you can see.
Yes, I can see
my
it.
screen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So our dispute management works in this way. We have two types of disputes. We have two types of disputes. We have the ones that are related to transactions, which means a DFSP is disputing or is initiating a dispute related to a particular transaction or transactions, or the dispute initiated is not related to any transactions. On our market, this has happened. Maybe a DFSP is complaining about maybe going on and off of another DFSP, which causes maybe some failures in transactions, something like that, which is not related to specific transactions. So these are the two types of transactions, dispute transaction that we have currently. And then under those disputes, we have categories. So each category is created dynamically. As I have mentioned, each type, if it's transactions, we create categories under each type, and then all those categories are created dynamically by the hub, which means are predefined. When someone is initiating a dispute, you don't just put any category or any reason. So this is created predefined before by the hub. And then also, the only thing that I can mention here is that only transactions that are related to dispute that are related to transactions require settlement. So one of the major part of our dispute management here is also settlement, because if a dispute requires a refund of money, which means there will need to be the settlement. And this part is only reserved for disputes that are related to specific transactions. So we have
Sorry,
what you call,
on that slide there, Promesse,
yes,
do you mean settlement as in resolution or settlement of funds?
settlement of funds, because some for example, I can give you an example. There was some dispute that require maybe someone has sent money on the wrong number, or the receiver didn't receive the money, which means if the receiver didn't receive the money and the hub has already settled both parts, means the sending participant will need to be refunded. So
Yes.
if the dispute is in that case, then we need also the settlement. And you will see there's a slide that is dedicated to the settlement that explains how it works. Yeah. So that's what I meant.
The way that we normally handle that within a modular loop environment is we create a new transaction to effectively reverse the original transaction and linking the two transactions together.
Yes,
So,
and that's also how it is done here. When it's recorded, it's recorded as a new transactions.
Yeah.
A new transaction. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to verify that.
Yes. Yeah, which makes sense. It's a good question. So those dispute assignment. So for us, as I have mentioned, two types of disputes that we have now that are related to a specific transaction, and the ones that are not related to a specific transaction. The ones that are related to a transaction, when a DFSP initiates it, the system automatically assign this dispute to a DFSP that is part of the transaction, which means if the transaction is between Bank A and Bank B, and Bank A initiates a dispute of that transaction, the system will automatically assign it to Bank B. And when the dispute is not related to the transactions, now a DFSP has the ability to manually assign the dispute to another DFSP or even the hub. In this case, we have given a room where DFSP can complain maybe about the hub, about another DFSP, depending on which reason. And as I have mentioned, categories or reasons are predefined by the hub, but that ability is there, especially when a dispute is not related to a transaction. So this is how the assignment is done. On one side, it's done automatically. On the other one, it's done manually, depending on if it's related to a transaction or not. So this is the dispute assignment, and I'm sure when I go to the flow, visually, this will be understood even better. On the dispute arbitration, we have only two levels. There's the level of the hub and there's the level of the regulator here in our case. So which means when the transaction is happening between two DFSPs and they don't agree, they can say, okay, let us now escalate to the hub, and the hub will review the dispute, and then the hub will take the decision. If the decision is not clear to them, or maybe they don't agree with them, or one of them doesn't agree with them with the decision made, there can be another escalation to the regulator now. So we have only two levels here on our market of arbitration, and I'll explain even in detail how it works. And then we have what we call dispute closure. So there's a way to close a dispute manually, especially by the initiator of that dispute when he's satisfied by the decision made. Or there's a way that we have created of closing disputes automatically, especially when there's a decision has made, and then we wait for the FSP to react or to escalate or not. If they don't make any decision at a certain period of time set configured in the system we close the dispute. So this is the same way in courts that they do when maybe the judge say this is how it's going to be, and then no one appeals. Then at a certain moment, 1 month or any set time, the dispute will be closed. So this is also how our system works. And we have, of course, the last part of the dispute, which is settlement. So we handle dispute settlement differently on how we handle other transaction settlement. So normally we use what we call deferred net settlement.
Is discussing the.
Sorry. Yes. Okay. So we have two ways. So there's the transaction settlement. Normally we use what you call deferred net settlement, where transaction happen asynchronously, and then after the end of the cycle of the window, which can be 1 day, 12 hours, when we close it, we generate, of course, the system clears, and then we settle as a batch of transaction. But when it comes to disputes, this is not how it's done here. The dispute is settled on its own. If the dispute happens now and we close, the hub settles, it means that settlement file will go to the central bank automatically without waiting that the window is closed. So that's how we manage dispute. And I'm sure you will even understand more when we go to the process flow. So this is I've tried to make like a resume of how things are done here, and I'm sure the process flow are more even detailed to show you how the process from 1 to Z it's done. So I would like to go on the flow if there is no question.
Well, Michael Richards has just raised his hand. So, Michael, over to you.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I just wanted to check, Promesse. Can you leave the thing where it is? That you're saying that when a repayment is made because of a dispute, that's settled outside the normal settlement process of the system.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're asking why, if I understood well the question, why we do it like that? Why we don't wait for the end of the window? Or yes. So the reason why is because we have this is the reason why we did this is because we were working on instant payment. We were seeing how we can resolve disputes really in a very quick way. And then we said, okay, if we manage, for example, because especially we started by the merchant payment. This is a very sensitive market, and merchants really need money like now. For example, if you are maybe you take a motorcycle because those are one of the merchants, motorcyclists, and then you pay money, he doesn't receive money, and then maybe there's a dispute. We said, okay, we cannot wait at the end of the day for that person to get his money back or to do something. So we said for disputes specifically, we'll be sending these settlement files individually to the central bank. At the same time, it's closed without
Yeah.
waiting for the
Yeah.
window. So that was the reason behind.
I suppose what I'm thinking is that in the case where an ordinary payment is made, the beneficiary gets the money before settlement. And I'm
Yes.
just trying to understand why the reverse isn't true. I mean, why, for instance, the motorcycle riders, the passengers, DFSP doesn't refund the passenger and then wait to receive the money from the motorcycle riders, DFSP, in the process of settlement. I suppose what I'm saying is that in a normal motor group system, it's not necessary for funds to be settled for the customer to get them.
Yes. Yeah. What you say really makes sense. And which I think I don't think which is even the one that is being done on the market, because the beneficiary gets the money and then the settlement uh, happens, of course, behind the scenes after between the DFSP. But on dispute, there was in the scheme rules that we used to do, because this was how it was being done on P2P on our market, was that this dispute also gets settled automatically. Like we send to BNR and then they are handled. Maybe that would be something that we can maybe even consider on ours to see if we can take the dispute settlement and maybe do a file of them and then maybe settle them as we settle also the transaction. So that's something that we can look into it and then maybe implement here after seeing the pros and cons of it. But
Okay.
that was our practice here. But yes, it's a very good point, and I mentioned it. I will take a note of it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Michael, for that very good point. It's
Yeah, very good
important
point,
that
yeah.
the solution that we are developing does, whilst it meets the requirements of Rwanda, it is focused on every other potential deployment environment as well. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
it's a really good point.
Promesse, do you
Yeah.
want to open this to discussion now? Or?
To proceed?
Yep, go on.
Yes. Thank you very much. Let me know if you can see the flow.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is now, we have 3 levels. So there's the first level where the dispute is initiated, and then it's being handled between 2 DFSPs. And then the second level is about escalation to the hub, and the third level is about escalation to the regulator. So this is how it's done. On our side, first of all, in banks, we have what we call a maker-checker process. They don't want someone who initiates the dispute to be even the one who approves its initiation. So which means in a DFSP, there's someone who initiates a dispute, and there's another person in the same DFSP who approves that, okay, this dispute makes sense, we can open it. So this is how it goes. So they initiate the dispute, which includes filling the form, and this form is about, if it's related to a transaction, you put a transaction ID, you choose the category of the dispute. If you have some further comments, you can just put it. If you have something to upload, you can upload it. That's how the system works. And then you send it for the internal review and approval. So when it's still here, it has what we call a pending status. And when it's still here, the other DFSP cannot see it because it's still internal. And then an internal person who has the rights of reviewing that, does the review, and then when he say, okay, this is a valid dispute, then he approves internally, and then it gets automatically to pen status. And then when it's not, of course, they cancel it, and then when it's canceled, it cannot be seen on the other side. But when it's approved, that's when now the other DFSP automatically receives it. So this is, again, this is as maybe
before
about to
before you
remind.
go on, Promise,
Yes,
Michael has
yes.
raised his hand. Please, Michael.
Okay.
Again,
Michael,
I'm
please.
afraid, sorry to interrupt you, Promise. I just wanted to ask, are these are the user interfaces for these processes something which the scheme produces or something which the DFSPs themselves produce?
So the user interface has been done by the scheme, and we have the portals of the DFSP and the portal of the hub. So we have created where the DFSP will be interacting, where they'll be seeing their transactions, everything related to DFSP.
Okay.
We have their portals, and then we also have the hub side where we'll be monitoring everything happening on the scheme.
Okay. Thanks very much. I just wanted to basically to raise as a question that this work stream will have to think about and decide on how much of the content the work stream wants to take responsibility for and how much it wants to leave to the participants.
Yes. Yeah. I think this is one of the challenges that we need to answer first, because as I have mentioned, we have different use cases. We have so much work to do. One of the major challenges we have is to now decide this is what you're going to do as a community, and this work will leave it to the FSPs. It's a valid point. Then,
Okay.
so when the DFSP now receives the dispute, so just to remind you here, it can be done automatically when it's related to a transaction or manually when it's not related. But either way, it will reach to the respondent or the one assigned to it. So you receive the dispute, you review the dispute. So in our case here, we have built even features of chatting where DFSP can exchange even some proofs. If maybe I'm asking you about a specific transaction where you can upload the proof, where you can upload everything, and this is seen by two DFSPs that are involved in the dispute, and also the hub has visibility. But when the hub is not yet involved, the hub cannot comment or upload anything. Still, the conversation is between two DFSP. So after reviewing, you can say, yes, I approve what you are claiming is right. Or you can say no. After maybe showing some proofs and everything, you say, I decline. So there's two ways. Now, when you approve, I will come to this part later, but when you approve, there's two ways. It can be related to a transaction and it requires settlement, which is this part, or it can even be another thing that is not related to a transaction, which will not need settlement. But either way, when it's declined or approved, we notify both the initiator and the hub of our decision. And then of course, the initiator receives the decision that we have made. And the initiator assesses it and then say, okay, if it's valid, if it makes sense, because it can either be approved, then you are lucky, you will close it, or it can even be declined, and maybe the respondent has even provided valid reason, which we say, okay, even if it's declined, their reasons are valid, I'll also close it. So when you're not satisfied with the answer or the decision made on the other side, that's when you escalate to the hub. And of course, that dispute will have what we call pending hub escalation status, like the pending hub escalation. And of course, we notify even the respondent, even the hub. The system notifies it automatically that the dispute has been escalated to the hub for this specific reason. Because when you're escalating, also provide reasons of escalation. When it's approved, the settlement part that I have said, if it involves returning funds, what we do is we do the settlement, which this is something that we were saying that we have to discuss how we are going to do it at the community. Because for us, the system we're just generating, because if the dispute was involved between Bank A and Bank B, we already have Bank A and Bank B details. We already have their accounts in central bank. We generate a settlement file that gets reviewed by another Rswitch staff or a scheme manager staff. And then when he's happy of what he's saying, he can press settlement button like settle, and then we send automatically to the central bank. But this is something that, of course, we need to see if it's the best way or if you can take another approach. But this is how it's being done on our side. So this is
we need to generalize.
level.
We need to generalize that to a more usual way of doing it. I think we've identified that. Michael, you made a statement on the chat. Can you elucidate, please?
Oh yeah, sorry. This just goes back to the box near the top in the dispute review. Do I understand from what you said, Promesse, that the chatting and manual communication might mean that information relating to the dispute was not stored with the records of the dispute? I mean, effectively, that they're out of band and therefore would not form part of the material, for instance, that the hub could review.
Mm-hmm. What you say is true, because the reason why I have done this this specific feature is because according to the system that we were using before, this is just a way of it's like a just in case, because with module loop we have of course everything related to that transaction. You can see everything clear, but on other systems that we used to use, it was like there was some transaction that happened and you can find on one system, because the FSP has also their own system here. They have their own system which can be working well or not. So you can find something is visible in our system, but you don't have it. So we just provided a way, if it's possible, to say this is how it's done. Also, this chatting process is when you understand maybe even better when we reach the escalation part, because when the regulator, for example, does maybe reviewing the case and everything, this is where they even upload the minutes, so that even dispute is closed. Even if you can come and check after 1 year, you will see this dispute has been closed at the regulator level, and these were the minutes, these were the reason of the decision made, everything. You can see, you can see everything that you need to know about the discussion had, so that they closed it. So that's why we made this feature actually. But most of the information of the transactions are there. It's just in case someone doesn't have information.
Yes,
yeah, I suppose
clearly case, but if there is additional documentation or material to the actual dispute, then it should be included in the dispute management system. It should be made available for later review. So even if, whatever the circumstances, there needs to be a record.
Yes, and that's how it is. Because when you upload minutes, when you upload everything, if the decision is being made by the hub and they upload the minutes had, when maybe they call in a meeting with the 2D FSP and the hub, the minutes will be uploaded here. And even if you can visit it after a long time, you will see this was closed by maybe returning money, and you can see the reason why they have taken that decision. That was the reason of that specific feature.
Yeah.
I suppose how I would want to phrase it is to say we need to have enough capacity in the dispute management service that we can convincingly say in the scheme rules, nothing that's not in the scheme dispute management service is germane or relevant to the resolution of a dispute.
Yes, I agree with you here. I do agree. That's well noted. Yes. Any other idea, question on the first level before I move to the hub?
Please carry on.
Yeah. So now when it's escalated to the hub, this is the process. So this is the escalation to hub. So the only person who can escalate to hub is the one who initiated the dispute, because in this case, it means he's not happy with the decision made on the other side. So he's the only one who can escalate to the hub. So when the escalation is done, the hub receives the escalation, the review. So reviewing involves different things. In this discussion, both the FSP1 and the FSP2, they have exchanged proofs, they have exchanged different things. And of course the scheme can even go in logs and everything, they see everything. They maybe try to talk to the FSP and they provide enough clarity about this. And then when this has been done, the next step is now to make a decision. So in our system, there's a button where you click close escalation. And then when you click close escalation, we have also some what we call decision categories, which are also predefined. So we have also the decision have different categories and have been predefined in on the hub side. So the reason of these predefined categories is more on reporting, because most of the time, especially when you're initiating a dispute, we've had these cases so many times that someone is initiating a dispute, he provides like a very long paragraph of explanations where you can even read, you don't even understand where the problem is. So we have decided actually to say, okay, we'll give you what we call predefined categories. Even here we have predefined decision categories, and we also give you another way of putting your additional comments after providing the decision. And after you put why you are taking the decision, you even choose, is this decision in favor of approving what the initiator wanted, or maybe declining? So the reason why we have added this extra step is that even after the decision of the hub, the system will know if this decision made requires settlement, then it will be automatic. We don't have to press somewhere or to be proceeded in settlement and then generate a file. That was the reason. So, and then after this decision process, they confirm the decision, and then they, of course, here they have chosen if the decision made is in favor of approving or declining the dispute. And then we notify both participants with the decision made. So now in this case, it's very different, because now here, the decision has been made by the hub and two participants are informed by the decision. And two participants will review the decision. And now two participants here, which is different to the first level, two participants now here have the ability to escalate. You remember on the first level, only the initiator was allowed to escalate. But now here, it's possible that the hub can take a decision that pleases the first party and not please the second one. So everyone here has the rights to escalate to the regulator if they're not happy with the decision of the hub. So how it's done in our current system is that when you are happy with the decision, you just mark it okay, satisfied. If another party is also happy, they mark it as satisfied. And then when both parties have marked as satisfied, the system closes the dispute automatically. But when one of the parties is not happy, then that's where the escalation to the regulator happens. So the settlement part is the same as the previous one. That's why I didn't mention it here. So this is actually how the hub escalation is done. So yeah, I would love to know if there are some questions on this level 2 process of our dispute management or improvements that you can do here.
I don't think we
Or
have
if-
any. I don't think I have any questions. Anyone in the audience? Any questions? No? Okay.
Yes, we can proceed with the last one, which is even the easiest one because now anyone who you can see now, both the FSP1 or the FSP2 can both escalate to the regulator. So to be specific here, we don't have a specific portal dedicated to the regulator. No. If it's a matter of here of the rights and permissions, we have created some rights and permissions of users who are allowed to view and access these disputes that are escalated to the regulator, which means also if the regulator will have the access to this platform, they will go through it as hub users, but with those specific rights and permissions. And then anyone can escalate to the regulator, and then the process of decision is really the same. So here, where I have written review the dispute, this can be a meeting. The regulator can call a meeting between two DFSP and the hub. They meet, they do one meeting, they can do the second, depending on the severity of the issue that they are discussing. And then the decision process is still the same. You click close escalation, you choose the decision category, you provide additional comments. So additional comments here, it does also uploading those minutes of the meeting, uploading decision, uploading different things. And then you choose if the decision is in favor of approving or declining the escalation, and then you confirm the decision. Here, the difference between the regulator and the hub, when the regulator makes a decision is final, no one will escalate. So if the regulator maybe say bank A need to refund bank B, that's how it will be. If they say no refund needed, that's how it will be. No escalation, they just receive decision and that's all. And if of course the decision involves returning funds or settlement, the process is still the same, but no escalation process. So this is ideally how our dispute management works. And this is the flow that we have currently. So yeah, so I think after going through these 3 levels, I think some of the adopters will relate because maybe their system, they involve also 2 different participants, but some others will say, okay, for us, more than 2 are involved, how are we going to do it? But then this is now the time to share ideas, things that we can do, things that we can improve, and everything. Thank you, Paul. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Promesse. That's one way of doing it. It's a successful way of of having a dispute management system in this specific context of the Rwanda payment system. I wonder if anyone from other countries would like to give us some feedback. I don't know, I can see Justice here, for example, from Tazama. Why don't you give us some feedback on this? Tell us what you think about this. Justice? or anyone else from that group? I can see Greg, I can see Riker. You're all very shy today. Okay, anyone else want to give us some feedback on this? We need to get input from other operators so we can see what additional work needs to be done. How do we generalize this? Nobody willing to put their head above the parapet? Michael?
I have no shame. So I suppose that one set of questions we will need to ask ourselves in relation to this is, of the things that this does, which of them should be configurable and which of them are basic to the functioning of a dispute management system? Because I'm going to assume that different implementers will want to implement a system that has different characteristics. And where that's the case, those characteristics, or those variations, I should say, should be met by configurability of the system. Where we're going to say this function is absolutely core to a dispute management system, and everybody is going to want it, then we can leave those as a permanent part of the system.
So would it be a useful first step to do some form of requirement strip document? People in this group can comment on and decide whether it is, as you say, configurable or essential or whatever it might be. I think that could be a valid approach. So take this example and reverse engineer to a set of requirements, and let's review whether those requirements are appropriate. Would anyone agree with that, or is that too long-winded?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Michael said, because especially when the system is going to be used by multiple markets, different adopters, configurability is one of the key concepts that we need to see. For example, some markets they might say, okay, we need maybe the case assignment to be done automatically. Others may say, okay, we want it to be done manually. Others may say maybe only, especially on the arbitration, they may say we need only one party to be the point of escalation. Others may say, okay, we have 2, 3 different things. So we see what we can configure and what we cannot. Categories, people have different dispute categories or reasons. This is something that is configurable, and so many others. So which I agree that configurability is one of the things that we need to sit down and say we will allow them to configure this, and this, of course, this goes with the complexity of the system. The more we have so many configurable things, the more we have a complex system. So, yeah. So I agree with Michael.
Well, that's a good start, certainly. But we need to define those features and decide whether they need to be configurable or not. So, is somebody willing to actually define this that we have seen today in a semi-formal manner as a set of features? Promesse, do you want to take that on, or do you want somebody else to do it?
Yes, I want to take that one. I've been of course doing even other researches, seeing how both local and international disputes are handled. I think the best approach maybe that we can take is that today I have received some feedback, especially on settlement and everything, where I can now go and say, I propose, depending on maybe module, we have P2P, we have the merchant payment, we have PISP. I can go there and draft like some requirements or parts of the dispute management and say, this is what I propose, this is what I propose to be configurable and everything. And maybe I bring it to the community and say, how do you think this should be? And then we can move forward, starting from there.
Well, if we can do that, that would be a starting point. Myself and others, I think, would be very keen to comment on such a document. And if I can just highlight, just putting in the chat, that's what I put in the chat is the link to the Slack channel, which is devoted to this work stream. So if anyone, if Promesse, if you publish a link to a document on that Slack channel, and people can then join that Slack channel and review the document, if that's helpful. Kabuto, I see you put your hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to get some clarification under the hub. Once the dispute has been approved and it needs to be settled, it looks like the hub is doing all this manually by clicking a button. Can this be automated if the two parties have agreed? Then the hub should automatically settle instead of reviewing by manually pressing a button.
Well, it sounds like a requirement from Promesse to capture.
Yes, which is even a good point, because we have also considered this, but of course, as our last experience to other systems, the reason why we have put that button of clicking and then we send it is just for the one of the operators to review. But at certain point, we're like, okay, if we see like everything is being done smoothly, no mistakes and everything, we're even about to say, okay, now remove that action of placing the button, and then if approved, we generate a settlement file, we send it automatically, which is even a good idea also to have it here. So which can be something also configurable, as Michael has been mentioning. This is something that some of the people will say, okay, we need it configurable. Others will say, okay, we need someone to first check before settling. So good point.
Yep. That's great input, Kabuto. Can I ask if have you had any other thoughts during this session that you might like to share with us? Kabuto? Okay. Michael, sorry.
Are you able to get me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. It's only that this is the first time I'm seeing it. I would have provided additional input if I had it before the meeting was called. But for now, those are the only items.
Thank you. Promesse, can I ask you to share a link to this presentation on that Slack channel, please?
Yes, I will definitely do it.
And then we can review that as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Please do.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, thank you. And then if anyone wants to review, including Kabuto, then it's there. It's available for review, and we'd welcome any comments. Michael, I see you still have your hand up.
No, again, I'm afraid.
No?
So the 2 points that I wanted to make. The first point relates to the question that Kabuto raised. It seems to me that one of the things a dispute management system will have to do is to distinguish between cases where the funds have been wrongly credited to a customer. So, for instance, someone put the Marsden in wrong, and the transaction went to me rather than to Paul. Now, in that case, the money is in my account. There are other kinds of disputes which may relate to the fact that something is recorded as having been as an obligation that's owed to a DFSP, but the money hasn't been credited to a customer's account. So it's effectively it's the DFSP that owes the money, whereas in the first case, it's the customer that owes the money. And this goes back to the point that Kabita raised, because one of our fundamental principles in Mojaloop is that nobody should have funds debited from their account without consenting. So even in cases where a mistake was made, and I guess people who are used to mobile money systems will recognize this in this case immediately, you have to get the permission of the account holder to transfer the funds back. Because the funds not only have to be credited to the original sender, they have to be debited from the original receiver. And that's one reason why, for instance, mobile money systems, generally speaking, don't have automated reversals, because they have to get the beneficiary's permission to remove the funds from their account. So that's the first question, and that's a question that I think, as far as I can see, the system doesn't make that distinction at the moment, but I think it would need to make a distinction if it's to be a generally applicable dispute management system, and we would need to say, when we were defining what kind of dispute it was, for instance, to say this is a dispute that involves credit to a customer's account, or this is a dispute which involves mismanagement of obligations relating to a DFSP's account. So that is my first point. My second point is to pick up on something that Promesse said, which was PISP. Now, I think that where a PISP, third party, is engaged in a transfer, it's possible that any dispute relating to that transfer will also potentially involve the PISP, the fintech, even though the fintech is not, as it were, a direct holder of any funds relating to the dispute. It will have been part of the process by which the payment was made. So we will have to think again when we're thinking about what a general dispute management tool is like, how we will manage situations where a PISP, a third-party provider, is engaged in a payment. And that also goes for the question of inter-scheme payments, where the beneficiary and the debtor belong to different schemes. And there is a scheme like, for instance, Promesse's DRPP scheme, which allows payments to be made. Then, first of all, we will have to figure out which of the schemes is responsible for managing that dispute, whether the individual jurisdictional schemes can have or can form different views, whether they all have to consent, that is, to a determination of the dispute. And finally, how a reversal is to be managed where currency conversion is involved, and therefore the rates at which currency is converted in the reversal may be different from the rates which were in force when the original payment was made. Therefore, who is responsible for that difference or making good that difference? So those are some further thoughts on generalizing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Michael. I think that's very helpful. We are going to capture these in the recording. We are running out of time now. We only have a couple of minutes late. Promesse, do you want to make any final comments before we close?
Yes, I wanted to make a comment on Michael's important points, especially for the first point, where he mentioned, of course, how Mojaloop is built. So really the dispute should actually be very few, because both parties need to do the consent. But from the experience that we have here in Rwanda, for example, we saw that if we implement this courting phase, which is very important, which is one of the best services in Mojaloop, but we saw that this will require the whole industry to change, to redevelop their system. So which means there's a big chance that also on other markets, we might even find some other countries that are like Rwanda, where they will adopt module loop, half leaf, I can say, without maybe adopting quoting and everything, which means sometimes all these disputes will be many as we have them here in Rwanda. So, which means our dispute management should be really considering everything without saying, okay, it's like we have quoting, not be this difficult, but I think we should develop it to be ready to work on those markets that they will not implement quoting. And of course, with quoting, then that would be very, very good for us. And also on the second point, you have mentioned for the PISP, for sure those fintechs will be part of the dispute, which what I said that we have different use cases, even on the cross-border, not only because the transaction can fail at the level of maybe the correspondent bank, because now, this time, it's not the data agent and the creditor agent. We also have some corresponding bank in between. So this is something that can also be configurable because the market or the users of this system will choose to know to say, okay, we do cross-border, we do only domestic and everything. So this is also something configurable, which we need to sit and draw and see how we can configure it and make it useful for everyone. Yeah, so everything you said makes sense.
Okay, thank you. We are losing people now because we're out of time. So just to talk about next steps, Promesse, you're going to make available the presentation and the flow through the Slack channel.
Yes, done already.
Okay, great. And you're going to produce an overall requirements document that we can all comment on, share it through that, and perhaps have a follow-on call when that's ready. Is that okay? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Right, thank you. We're losing people at a rate of knots now, so I think we'll have to call a halt there. So thanks everyone for attending, and hopefully there'll be follow-up, and I hope as many as possible will review the documentation. Thank you.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thanks very much.
Promesse.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.